What's going on, everyone? It is the Derv, and today I am bringing us back to the Season of Stasis. Okay, maybe not technically, but Rime-Coat Raiment is a featured exotic in this season, and rightfully so. It is still extremely fun to use. So if you've been looking for a way to spawn a ton of Bleak Watcher turrets while also taking advantage of featured exotics, featured weapon damage, and of course, being able to freeze and explode everything, look no further. This is the build for you. While this isn't necessarily a speed running build, you will basically freeze the entire battlefield, making the game slow down to your pace, whatever that is. So if you've been looking for a way to do that and more once you get to the higher echelons of difficulty, look no further than this build. Let's go. To get started on our Rime-Coat freezing spam build, we need to talk about supers real quick. I have my personal preference, but you might decide to go with something else. My personal preference is either Needle Storm or Song of Flame, and there's two reasons. Needle Storm, when you pair it with Woven Mail from Orb Pickup, you can boost your grenade recharge rate via the artifact every single time that you have Woven Mail. Some of you may feel like you don't need that once we go over the aspects and may opt to go in with Song of Flame. The reason that Song of Flame makes sense is when you rapidly defeat targets with Song of Flame, you generate fire sprites which give you alternate grenade energy back at you. So you can keep spamming your Rime-Coat activation infinitely, even via your super. So these two are going to pair very nicely. The other benefit with using Song of Flame, once we get to the mods, you can put on 2 harmonic siphon mods if you choose, thereby giving you a stronger orb of power every pickup. And once you see the cooldown of your stats anyways, that might actually sway you, plus the addition of restoration every time you pick up that orb of pickup. So use your best judgment. I would highly recommend Needle Storm or Song of Flame. Don't waste your time with the Arc, Stasis, or in this case, Nova Bomb Super as well. For abilities, we're going to go with Phoenix Dive, Burst Glide, Arcane Needle for the 3 stack of melee energy, and the Healing Grenade. Now, the Healing Grenade is the lowest cooldown grenade of all of these. The timers may have gone away, but when you look at your weapon stats and then you cycle through the different grenades and then go back to those weapon stats and hover over them, you'll see that the cooldown for each of these is different. The longest one is the Vortex Grenade, which is why I pretty much never use it. Not because I don't like the Vortex Grenade, but it doesn't do enough for me that I want to wait that extra amount of time. And the Healing Grenade is the lowest cooldown. The Threadling, the Cold Snap, and the Storm Grenade are all the same cooldown. So that has not changed post Edge of Fate release. For aspects, we're going to roll with Feed the Void. The reason behind this is because we want additional health and grenade energy regeneration when we are killing enemies with our Arcane Needle. We are not going to be killing enemies with Bleak Watcher turrets and the Rime-Coat alone. We are going to need our abilities to still practice. If you are not running this build on a higher difficulty, you can easily swap this out for Lightning Surge, and then you'll have basically Jolt and the Stasis freezing and slowing effect to double down. But your health is going to be tough to recover without Devour active. So if you find yourself not proccing Devour anyways, maybe just drop Devour altogether and go with Lightning Surge and just take the enemies as they come at you, if that makes sense. Next up, we're going to be going with Bleak Watcher. Hold to convert your grenade into a stasis turret that fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. All of the slowing that's done will obviously, no pun intended and no play on words, will slow all of the enemies and eventually freeze them. However, it's particularly useful against overload champions. So you already theoretically have one champ covered, and we're going to go over how you can stun the other 2 with this same build. For fragments, first up is Facet of Purpose. When I pick up my Orb of Power, I either want Woven Mail or Restoration. Restoration, it cannot be interrupted by taking damage, and Woven Mail gives you additional damage resistance and pairs with the artifact so that you can get increased grenade and class ability regeneration. Next up is Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates elemental pickups of the matching damage type. Facet of Awakening is exactly why you need to decide what super you want to run. Do you want Fire Sprites so that you can get increased grenade energy that way? Do you want Woven Mail so that you can get so that you can generate tangles? Sorry, not Woven Mail. Needle Storm so that you can get tangles and those things. So tangles do technically count as an ability kill, but it doesn't always go like that because tangles don't do a lot of damage when there's no debuff attached behind them, like if you're equipped Swarmers, for example. You will also generate stasis shards with this, but I don't really care about the melee energy back. And again, if you want to swap out Feed the Void for Lightning Surge, you'll generate Ionic Traces, which will give you ability energy throughout all of your abilities. So you have to make that decision who you want to be in this build. Both of them work, it's just going to depend on the activity that you're running. Next up is Facet of Sacrifice. When you have an Arc Solar or Void buff, ability final blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. The reason that this is important is because we are going to be doing most of our ad clear with a light energy weapon. So we're not really worried about the Darkness Transcendence energy regen, not to mention that the Bleak Watcher tick damage will grant us that same meter growth for the darkness energy. So Transcendence will be a regular in this build depending on how you play it. But even if you're not quite, if it feels clunky to you, you'll still be able to cycle in and out of it pretty easily. Last but not least, and we can talk about this one in the comments if you want, I have Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Now, I go back and forth on whether or not I want this. Do I really care about the melee energy in this build? My first answer is yes, because it is the only way theoretically we can proc Devour other than our super. So being able to have our melee energy on call whenever we need it is going to be important. Now, once you have Devour active, you can continue Devour and continue the grenade and health regen by just getting kills with your weapon. But you need to be able to access your melee energy, and if it feels like you're not getting it back fast enough, Facet of Balance will help that. Now, we can talk about in the comments whether or not you think putting Facet of Command on is probably a better play, or possibly even Facet of Dawn. We are not necessarily going to need Facet of Dawn because through the artifact we should be able to proc Radiant regularly anyways. However, Facet of Command, if you find yourself constantly reloading or you like to reload often, every time that you freeze an enemy, you will be able to generate stasis shards from their frozen corpses. But more importantly, it will also reload your equipped weapon. So in the heat of battle, if you're finding that you're having to reload often and the enemies are getting the jump on you while you're standing in your spot, you may think about putting Facet of Command on to be able to continue firing without having to actually go through your reload animation. So let me know in the comments what works best for you. For stat distribution, I recommend focusing on grenade, weapons, and super in that order. Whatever stats you have left over, go ahead and dump them into melee. You want to try to get melee to at least a 70, just so you have the normal cooldown that you expect on your melee to begin with. But any extra ability regen that you can proc from, thinking of like your armor mods and or pickup, is going to still help you in the event that you're at a higher level content. The grenade energy, that's just straightforward because we want our grenade as often as possible so we can spawn our Bleak Watchers. And then our super, we're not going to take advantage of the intense super damage on top of 100 simply because I want to dump the rest of it into weapons. With weapons, here I'll show you so you can see it in real time. With weapons, we're going to get an extra 15% bonus damage with every weapon that we use. And if we use a featured weapon, which we've got 2 of them equipped, you're going to get an additional 10% on top of that. So weapon damage is imperative. Large ammo brick chance is also imperative given the heavy weapon I'm going to go through here in a second. And the weapon damage for the heavy weapon on top of that is going to be good for bosses. Primary special damage doesn't really matter that much. You're not missing out on the 1%. But the large ammo brick chance is very good to have for the weapons that we're using. And one other important note, you do not get enhanced Bleak Watcher turret damage from your grenade stat being above 100. So just get it to 100, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 over like I've got. If you're 5 or more over, I would say change something up so that you're sitting at 95, not over 100, because it's a waste of stat. You don't get any damage increase from using Bleak Watcher or Getaway Artist, just for whatever that's worth, in case anyone watching this video did not know that. It is a missed opportunity by Bungie, in my opinion, but to be fair, it's never buffed with grenade stats, so take that as you will. For weapons, we got Tina, front and center. Tina has been missing from a lot of my builds, but I'm starting to incorporate Tina more, and quite honestly, it is feeling better than ever. The fact that it can roll with chill clip, if you have Tina, you know exactly what this weapon can do to overloads. And oh, by the way, the sidearms in general stunt unstoppable champs, so we get a twofer here. Just make sure when you're done using Tina, reload so that every time you pull this sidearm out, you get not only increased damage via the artifact, which we'll go over in a second, but also the ability to proc chill clip within the first 2 or 3 hits. In the energy slot, we've got a new favorite pulse rifle, Stars in Shadow. Now, Stars in Shadow is not brand new. However, it got a rework, and now I am really liking this weapon. One of the reasons I like this weapon so much is its ease of use. Yes, it is only a 340 round per minute weapon. And yes, you only have 27 rounds. So after 2 or 3 or 4 cycles, yeah, you're going to have to reload. And the reload animation, at least for this particular role, is kind of long. So one of the things that you need to be conscious of when we're picking out our fragments is, do you want that automatic reload or do you not? However, this thing does hit like a truck. Consider this to be like the Red Death Reformed, but the legendary version. I love this weapon with Incandescent. I also love it from the impromptu ammunition. Final blows increase ammo meter progress from all sources for a slightly increased duration. In a longer activity, where ammo bricks are scarce, this weapon will get you more ammo bricks. It just does. I've noticed since putting this on more instances over the BXR. And again, I know some of you are going to be like, oh, the BXR, it's got incandescent and demolitionist. That's what you want, Durf. I couldn't agree more. However, this with the impromptu ammunition, you get more ammo brick regeneration simply by just using this. So when we're thinking about higher end content, and I know if you're not at the master, grandmaster level yet, then it may not matter to you as much. If you're just running advanced, or you're going through, kind of a tweener stage where you're not quite at the end game difficulties. Well, impromptu ammunition might be a perk to hold on to if you get a good roll. You can get this from farming the Crucible. Yes, I know the Crucible. Maybe I'll make a build about that, because now that I'm talking about it, I think that it might be a good idea to educate people, those that don't know, how to make a decent build for Crucible now, and to just farm it until you can get Stars in Shadow. Once you get this roll, hey, if you don't want to continue with Crucible, that's up to you. But that's where you get it from, in case you were wondering. For the heavy weapon, we're going to go with Microcosm. Microcosm works here for a couple of reasons. Number one is a kinetic-based weapon, and with our Tech Sec bonus, we deal increased kinetic damage to combatant shields, over shields, and constructs. And oh, by the way, if we pull this out for a champ and we whittle the champ's shield down to nothing, when you get that shield broken, it releases a disorienting shockwave. The radius is pretty good on this, so if you haven't messed around with Tech Sec armor and Microcosm, this is your sign to go and try it out in the shooting range. And yes, that's a perfect place to do it, because you can see it in real time, and just visually you should be able to go, okay, I could definitely use this on this, and this encounter, or this, and this activity, or A, B, it may not work in that. But Microcosm, featured exotic, plus 10% to the bonus weapon damage because of it. So with our weapon stat at 112, you get an extra 25%, and that's on top of the paracasual beam imbuement that you get from using your super. Again, the other reason why I have Needlestorm selected is because I get to one-shot my super and quickly switch to my Microcosm. So on the higher end content, that's going to be very useful when you're trying to whittle down the health bars of bosses and or, really beefy majors. Rime-Coat Raiment. It's not a brand new exotic. You can see I haven't even focused it this season. I just had a pretty decent stat roll for where I was at. Bleak Domain. Your Bleak Watcher turrets are enhanced with extended range and are surrounded by stasis crystals and a storm. While standing in the storm, you are granted icicles over time. Icicles activate when you fire your weapons, applying slow to targets they hit. After you apply enough slow stacks, the targets do, in fact, get frozen. This is not a speed running exotic. You are going to be firing at enemies from a distance. You're not necessarily going to be chucking this Bleak Watcher into the middle of a group of ads. However, if that's your cup of soup, so to speak, this thing will not only freeze everything that comes within arm's distance of you, but you can shatter everything, thereby granting you, stasis shards and whatever else on top of it. It's very, very potent. And add to that the fact that you're already getting increased damage resistance because it's a featured exotic. If you haven't busted out Rime-Coat Raiment yet this season, I'm telling you, I know that if you are a fast player, this might not be your best, go-to build. But when you get to higher end content and you're forced to kind of slow down anyways, do not sleep on this. I'm telling you, it's well worth your effort. As far as the rest of the armor mods go ahead and spec into whatever general armor mod that you need. In the helmet, make sure you put on a heavy ammo finder and put on the thermodynamic siphon so that you can pair your energy and your primary weapon together. In the arms, make sure that you put on a couple of heavy-handed as well as a fastball. The fastball is important because you can chuck your Bleak Watcher further ahead. So if you know you're going into a situation where, hey, I'm running up on these enemies, but I want to chuck this down because I want to stand in a certain spot, because it's kind of like a chess game out there when you're playing, master and grandmaster level, difficulties. That's a good way to make sure that you can chuck it over that barrier, over that, building or whatever you're around. In the chest armor, make sure that you put on 2 elemental resistance mods. And I put on a stasis ammo generation mod simply because I switch back and forth between Tanasha's and my energy weapon regularly, but you can make an argument for putting on the kinetic ammo generation as well. In the legs, we got Innervation, Invigoration, and Absolution. Now, you could probably make an argument to throw on double Innervation here, but it's really not necessary. The lowest cooldown for your grenade stat is not really going to get any lower by putting one of those on. In the final class item, Reaper, Class Font, and Bomber. We want Bomber on there, not only because we want to get our grenade energy back, but because it's just going to help the overall spamminess of the Bleak Watcher turret build. In the artifact, make sure that you have the anti-barrier scout and pulse rifle on, and make sure you have the unstoppable sidearm and hand cannon on. In the second column, make sure you have flame fiber and freeze. Also, make sure you have tightly woven on if you have the Strand Super equipped for your super. In the third column, make sure Fever and Chill. Also, make sure you have Reciprocal Draw. If you don't know, it will proc on the side of your screen when it's available to you. Also, make sure you have Refresh Threads, Elemental Coalescence, and then up here, we have to talk about it real quick. I have Cauterized Darkness because I'm spamming this Bleak Watcher build all the time. However, if you don't feel like you're having a problem dealing with debuffing non-boss combatants, put it on Elemental Days so that when you stun that champion, you can create an elementally aligned explosion, whether that's with your Stars and Shadow or with Tina. Either way, you'll get either a Stasis Blast or a Solar Blast with it. In the final column, go ahead and put on Shield Crush and Radiant Shrapnel. So one of the reasons that I think you should try this build is Rime-Coat Raiment, when it first came out, was absolutely ridiculous. Not only the fact that we had all of those stasis mods through the artifact, it was literally the season of stasis. But now that it's a featured exotic, now that weapons stats exist, now that damage resistance buffs exist, and all these different things, Rime-Coat is kind of in a different category. As seasons go on and as we rotate through different exotic armors and weapons, Rime-Coat's going to play kind of a different role. This is not necessarily a support build. It's not necessarily a run and gun build. It is more of a, I don't really know what, like a chess match build, where you're kind of thinking about how you want to do things. You're not interested in speed running, but you're also not interested in putting out subpar damage. And as you'll see in the boss video, and again, I understand it's not like a raid boss. It's not, Grandmaster or ultimate level, fighting. But Rime-Coat Raiment, with its ability to spawn all that stuff, you do have some very good crowd control. You have multiple ways of crowd control, actually. And then add to that the icicles that spawn with your weapons. You'll see it in the boss video when I'm using Microcosm and I'm freezing the enemy at the same time with Microcosm. It's just kind of a wild thing to watch. And I don't know why, but it's just incredibly satisfying to freeze and shatter the enemies. I don't know. It might not be as fun as blowing them up with an incandescent weapon, but it's equally as satisfying when you see like 5 to 15 of these enemies all in a little group together, just absolutely just turn into icicles and fall to the ground. I think it's pretty satisfying. Hopefully you will too. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a guardian out there who has been looking to dive a little bit more into stasis this season and is wondering if Rime-Coat is still worth investing in, go ahead and share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. As always, I will have a dim link in the video description, and if by chance you are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, feel free to hop into my Discord. There's a lot of great people in there, guardians helping guardians. No toxicity, no drama, just people that want to help each other reach the peak of the power grind and accomplish different things with armors and farming resources and those things. So shout out to my Discord for being so welcoming to everyone. So now I'm going to switch over to the boss battle. You're going to see in real time Microcosm shooting out ice bolts and whatever else they call it, freezing the enemies. It's pretty satisfying, and you're not hurting for, you're not hurting for health, you're not hurting for anything, but you'll see for yourself. So here we go, the boss battle. Once again, you get to see me absolutely airmail my Strand Super. I think I've done that in 2 or 3 videos now. I'm getting pretty good at it. But in all seriousness, once again, the reason that this build works in a variety of situations is your instant burst super paired with Microcosm for your DPS phase, and then your overall crowd control when you factor in the Bleak Watcher turret, with Rime-Coat. And Rime-Coat, again, for stasis lovers out there, this is not going to be anything brand new. If you love stasis, if you love freezing the battlefield, so on and so forth, Rime-Coat is probably your go-to exotic. Well, it's not everyone's go-to exotic because it doesn't play extremely fast, and that's kind of one of the downsides of Rime-Coat. Now, you take that with a grain of salt because not every activity you're going to be able to speed run through. I mean, I guess theoretically, yes. You could, if you have the right build, you could speed run through theoretically everything. But once you get to the higher, echelons of difficulty in this game, the game has to slow down. I mean, unless you're in the top, small percentage of players that can speed run at any difficulty, no matter what, and just basically focuses on meta builds the entire time that you're always playing, you're going to have situations where once you get to a certain difficulty, you're going to have to slow down and you're going to have to just play smart. It's in situations like that that Rime-Coat really just kind of shines because it doesn't force you to be anything that you're not. And oh, by the way, it slows down the game for you so that you can, maybe reload like I just did there, or take your time kind of ticking down the boss. And you see the boss obviously is afraid of Rime-Coat because, they were hiding behind But in all seriousness, though, this build definitely works, especially in activities where you might be by yourself. And I think those that see kind of the validity of this will probably agree. So I will see you guys next time. Thank you as always for your support. Take care.